Cool, we're here for another word of the week, and this time it has my face. So what are we're doing it differently this week, because instead of creating a sort of a deck which I talk to over time, I've actually decided to do it more sort of live streaming as I go, recorded obviously, and then put up to review, so you can see how I do and how I find things and what we find. So the first thing to say is that we are doing it using the Compact Oxford English Dictionary, and it can even focus on it. Compact Oxford English Dictionary. Now, the world's most trusted dictionaries, apparently. And this one, delightfully, is from... It is the third edition. Third edition, published in 2005 of this, originally published in the year 2000. So, it is an aged tome, and therefore will have aged words in it. Let's find out what we find. And this week, we have chosen the letter D. D. So, when I'm doing this, I'm glancing through the dictionary to find words that look moderately interesting. And the first one I find is the word dab chick, which sounds terribly exciting, but is a little grebe. So I'm not going to research that further. What else have we got? Dab hand. It's a British one. You might not know if you're not British, but it's a person who's skilled in a particular activity. So a dab hand at something would be someone who's good at it. Don't really like that. What else have we got? Dacoit. Band of armed robbers in India or Burma, which is pretty cool. A dactyl. That could be interesting. A metrical foot consisting of one stressed syllable followed by two unstressed syllables. So it's used in poetry, coming from the Greek for finger or dactylos. That's pretty cool, but I'm not really feeling like that at all. It's a cool word. And what else have we got? Daguerreotype. Daguerreotype's cool. Early photographs. Yeah, I liked them. They're pretty fun. These is not really working for me at the moment. Dalliance. Dalliance is a fun word. Damaging. Damascened. Huh. Damascened. Now that sounds fun because it links to something that I've seen in the past. Bound sort of. So, what is Damascened? It is given a wavy pattern by hammer welding and repeated heating and forging, inlaid with gold or silver from the Syrian city of Damascus. So, where is it from? Is obvious. It's from Damascus. So I don't need to do any etymological researching to understand where it's come from, which is always nice. But what I can do is look for exciting examples of Damascus Steel and potentially link to some other stuff that I've seen in the past. So what I would do now is I'll start to research that, and I think there's a very good example of this using a very popular YouTuber called Alex Steel that I'll probably riff off. So bear with me while I go and find that. In fact, having thought about it, there is a better video, it turns out, having looked more carefully. So there's a chap called Will Stelter over in the States who worked with Alex Steel, who's produced a video on what is Damascus, or more accurately he's called it Why You're Wrong About Damascus Steel, which sounds moderately interesting because I didn't know I was wrong about Damascus Steel. So I'm going to watch that and I'm going to do a bit of a reaction as we go. Here we crack.
Who am I? I'm Stephen Schwarzer. I've been forging blades and playing with iron for over 50 years. Well, there are two distinct forms of it. There's cast Damascus. Modern pattern weld is layered different alloy steels to create a pattern. So that's commonly called Damascus, but it's not. This is the quote true Damascus, if there is such a thing. But there's two distinct types. So one's pattern welded and one is cast.
So I've already learned something, which is I was wrong. I was a little bit wrong. So two different types of Damascus. That is curious. So one version from the past, one version from the present that we call Damascus. So I'm guessing that means that if you're looking at like a kitchen knife and it says Damascus Steel, then it's technically talking nonsense. Ha! So here we go. Random Damascus kitchen knife from Amazon by the Nanfang Brothers store. This is not an advert for them, it's just, you know, like a quote unquote Damascus steel knife. Not Damascus, you lie. Or, by dictionary, sort of a little bit like Damascus. Fine.
For that cast Damascus.
That's Woots. Woots typically it was out of the northern India or Russia.
When was Woots developed?
About 400 BCE. It is a carbide structure that's developed by forging and that's developed out of the dendritic formation of actually casting the steel. The steel was heated and cast in crucibles, and any casting will form dendrites almost without exception. And then by precision forging, you can develop a pattern in that material. In my opinion, yes. I mean, it's the real deal. It's just two different techniques. Some people say only crucible stuff is, and well, that's nonsense. I mean, they've been producing iron for over 4,000 years and for specific reasons. Some of it was made from the things from the stars. This is a nickel iron meteorite, and as far as I know, the first iron blades were forged out of this skyfall material, particularly in Middle East and Indonesia, but a nickel iron meteorite.
Okay, so turns out shouldn't have shot from the hip. Can actually I sort of owe an apology. Oh, Damascus knife set from Nanfang Brothers store. I might have completely been unfair on you. Yeah, sorry about that.
That goes back, way back. When they first started making iron, my hypothesis is there was different people making iron, and they were doing the tamahagani. Oh, that's Japanese for bloomery iron, basically, is what it is. But they also did it all over Europe. They used bog iron, which was actually a bacteria that sublimated what they call limonite, or it was a bacterial excretion in a bog, and they call it bog iron. And it's caused by bacteria that nuclei the iron out into a concretion, and they would extract the concretion and reduce that by heating and forging into a bloom. And so that was the very earliest stuff was bog iron. But you got to understand that mess was a mess. It comes out, and you can look up all kinds of YouTube and stuff on how it's done. But they forged that together, and it was a matter of folding and forging to clean it. So that was the first patterning.
Okay, so that's pretty cool. This guy knows his stuff. I mean, never judge a book by its cover, clearly. But that's really interesting. This bog iron concept makes me think. And the fact he's talking about sort of pattern welding from way back in the day reminds me of sort of Celtic pattern welding. So pattern welded swords and things from ancient Britain. So I'm going to have a quick look at that, because this is the kind of thing that Word of the Week takes me down the track of, which is a lovely little exploration. Well, so my research took me to looking for pattern welding of Anglo Saxon stuff, because that's fun. And it took me to the Sutton Hoo sword. The Sutton Hoo sword, I believe this is. Yeah, there we go. Sutton Hoo sword. Not restored from fragments, lifted as a solid but rusted unit. There we go. So this sword came from the famous Sutton Hoo site. More on that in a moment. But it's a pattern welded iron sword blade. Admittedly, you can't see a huge amount of it, but hell, it was made in the 6th or 7th century. I mean, give it a break, you know. So if you want to find more about Sutton Hoo, which is really cool by the way, then go to the British Museum because they have excellent details about it. Here we go. Most impressive medieval grave to be discovered in Europe. And one of the things that you might have come across in the past is the Sutton Hoo helmet, which is the iconic image of the whole thing. And so yeah, here is the Sutton Hoo helmet. I mean, look at it. How cool is that? This is ridiculous. It's got nothing to do with Damascus, but this is where my brain has gone in researching, and that's the joy of word of. And I think the cool bit is when you look at the reproduction of the Sutton Hoo helmet and what it's considered it might have looked like. So this is from the. It was made in 1973 at Tower Armouries. 1973, 1974. It's just incredibly cool that this is what some ancient Anglo Saxon chief would have had back in the day. I say chief, king. Anyway, should probably go back and find out a little bit more about Damascus rather than getting distracted by pattern welded ironwork with bog iron and the ancient Anglo Saxons. But I mean, come on, let's start somewhere and go fun.
The most common misconceptions about it, I think, is that it's some kind of super material, and it's not. It's more of an art. It's more of a beauty thing than a performance thing. Except in very, very rare cases, as I stated before, there's about 1% of the bladesmiths that can make it shine above its base metals, and that requires a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, a lot of forging experience. Anybody just about can weld it. Used to be that was the hard part, getting it to stick together, but now it's with the machinery and the techniques and all the TV, you can go look it up and manage to get some of it stuck together.
I can't honestly say that I thought that Damascus Steel was a super weapon, like, you know, able to cut through cannons and that, but I guess that might be a misconception that some people would have. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just steel. It's not like it's a laser sword.
Close the blast doors! They are still coming through. This is impossible!
Yeah. Damascus Steel, not a lightsaber. Check.
The first recorded case of industrial espionage had to do with that. So what did you have to have in the Navy to get where you're going accurately? Well, the longitude you could get by the stars, but latitude you had to get with a good clock. You had to know how far. In order to have a good clock, you had to have good clock springs. So this English guy had developed this blister steel, and basically what they did is they took a big iron block and they heated that block up red hot and packed carbonaceous material around it and soaked carbon into the block, and then they would take it out and they would quench it and form blisters, and they'd knock those blisters off, and that was called blister steel. And so you take that blister steel and lay it and weld it, and if there happened to be a little alloy difference in what they were using, you would get a physical pattern. You can see it. And he wasn't a bad man, but he was very secretive. And so they had the best springs, and so the British Navy could be anywhere they wanted to be exactly in the world, which was like holding the atomic bomb. Well, one night this guy's making blister steel, rainy, snowy, an old bum, drunk, falls up against his shop out there, and the old man, being kind, not a mean guy, didn't want the guy to die, so he drug him in next to the hearth, and this guy laid there all night with one eye cracked open, and next thing you know, his secret's all over Europe. Well, that was the first recorded case of industrial espionage that I know of had to do with ironwork and knives and springs.
Cool. So, industrial espionage, that's cool. Devious, but you know, cool. We've got wavy pattern steel. Damascus, originally from Syrian city of Damascus. I mean, I feel we should possibly close here with a tribute to Damascus itself, the city of. So, if you ever want to know where Damascus is, let's do a little zoom out. We've got Beirut appearing. There you go. It's just east of Lebanon, west side of Syria, and it's obviously in the Middle East, or what would have been called the ancient Near East, actually, up until relatively recently. So, yeah. Damascus, exactly where you thought it was in Syria. Good effort, Damascus. We'll be back next week for the letter E, but I hope you've enjoyed this. It's a little bit of a different way of doing it, but I think it shows you the thought processes I'm going through when I'm thinking about what word am I finding interesting this week, and also the different kind of things that you can find when you start digging in a hole. It was a quick go, it was a quick jaunt, but yeah, hope you found it fun. Let me know in the comments.